if you're a Buddhist, by definition, you need to find yourself a guru or a teacher. And once you have a guru, there is a connection. You you follow whatever advice he will give you. Doesn't mean he will give you an advice, because gurus tend to be mirrors, we call them. It's a mirror where you have to look at. And what he does, usually, if you ask serious questions about yourself, he will just bounce it back towards you. Because Buddhist, you have to do your own work yourself.
This is the podcast to restore your faith in humanity. Once giraffe heroes, we now call our participants guardians of humanity. Courageous, tireless workers for the common good. May each of them inspire you to follow in their tracks and contribute your own part to a just society and a healthy environment. My name is Dimi Dumortier, and I welcome you to another episode of the podcast to restore your faith in humanity. With us today are Isa Luque Alvarez and Humphrey Maffei, two people living high up in the Alpujarras, the hills just before the Sierra Nevada in Andalusia. But living in a remote place doesn't mean they are no longer committed, and my, are they committed. These are two people who have led since their young years a life committed to social justice and inner truth. And I would like to start with you, Isa. Am I correct if I say that the region where you now live is very familiar to you since you are Andalusian?
Yeah, my family is from south of Spain, and I live here for 20 years, and after 20 years I left. And I have been away for more than 35 years. Come back here only 12 years ago.
And were you born in the Sierra somewhere in the Alpujarras?
No. My family is from Cadiz. It's more in the west side. And I was born in a village called Mérida, that is Extremadura, near Portugal. But both my father and mother, they were both Andalusians, but not from the Alpujarra.
And Humphrey, I reckon that you are not a native Spanish speaker?
Not really, no. I'm French culture, French education, from an English father and a German mother, and born in Switzerland. And politically, I'm Swiss.
And both of you ended up meeting each other in India.
That's right.
And that was in the 1980s?
84.
Humphrey, I read that you were raised to be a teacher. Is that correct?
No, I didn't grow up with my parents because they had some issues. I resulted in foster care most of my youth, and definitely in full foster care from the age of 9. So 9 to 14, I was up in the Alps at the end of a valley, Lost Valley. And then I came back to Switzerland to start school because I started school very late. So I went to school, then to university, but I have been a teacher for 4 years for the last year of compulsory education. That means 15 years old in the local college, teaching math and physics to people who were definitely not academic. So that was interesting. And then I became a specialized educator, meaning I was working with people who had social problems and legal problems. In other words, social misfits and criminals, more or less. But from 15 to 20 years old. At 20, they're adults, so the state has nothing to say. But I didn't choose anything. It just happened. I just slotted in. I had a facility because of my own upbringing with these kind of outsiders, if you want, of the social system. And it suited me perfectly because I had one foot completely outside of the system with them, and I had one side completely within the system because I was paid by the state to do that. So
So you were a bridge figure.
Nah, well, not really, but I had a foot in each side, and it gave me a fantastic freedom feeling, because I could do whatever I wanted, and none of them would reject me because I belonged to both.
But how does a social worker working in France or Switzerland end up first in Lebanon and then in the Danakil region in Ethiopia?
No, it's just because at one point somebody suggested I go and work managing a village in Bangladesh that belonged to an NGO called Terre des Hommes, pretty famous actually. And so I was hired to go to Bangladesh at the beginning, but they had an emergency and they needed somebody in Lebanon. And it was in 82, the worst year. So, okay, I ended up in Beirut. But, it's just, again, no choice of mine. It just so happened. I just slotted in. So I worked in Lebanon, then I came back, and then I went in an emergency mission in Ethiopia because of the drought. And we can discuss at length about the drought in 83 in Ethiopia. And then after that, when I came back from Ethiopia, somebody suggested I go for them. It's a friend who had an NGO in Geneva, and he asked me if I could go and deliver some medicine in Sikkim, in Rumtek. And because there were 10 full tuberculosis cure that were given by a pharmaceutical in Bâle, they didn't want to send it by post because obviously somebody would make money out of it. So he asked me if I didn't mind, because I had time to go and deliver it by hand.
And did you realize at that moment that the Sikkim region was very remote and recluse? Because I myself was in 1988, I was in India and I tried to get into Sikkim. I was denied access there. Did you realize that it's a very difficult region to get in?
Coming out of Lebanon in 82, there was no such thing as a remote region. And believing with 7 armies controlling the whole of the country and me being in charge of the whole of the country for the NGO, I had to go everywhere. So, I mean, it didn't even come into my mind that it was remote. And the way I ended up there is something out of a film. But I still ended up in Rumtek, and, everything went perfectly well. Now, there was limited. I only got a visa for 7 days. And I could extend it with 3 more days. But after 10 days, I definitely had to leave Sikkim, because from the monastery on one side of the valley, you could see China, because China was on the mountain range just across the valley. So obviously, foreigners were not really welcome there. Now, I have a British passport. So when I went to India in 84, I didn't need any visa or nothing. It was an open country for the Brits. And it's only while I was in India that the thing changed because of Amritsar and the Golden Temple. So suddenly you need a residence permit. But you were still controlled, to be honest, because the railway station in New Jalpaiguri it's an army base. It's the biggest army base in the East, or it used to be. So obviously you're going through an army base. So foreigners are not foreigners, civilians are kind of monitored, to be polite. But, it's like everything else. I have never have any problem in my life. I had incredible things that happened, but I never got hit. I never got damage. I never got anything, and I went through it without any problem. So it's difficult to say that it's anything exceptional, because I don't see it at all as exceptional. And you can say whatever you want, I don't think it is exceptional. You learn when you live in Lebanon something called inshallah. So it either goes or it doesn't go. If it's your day, it's your day. If it's not your day, you can do whatever you want. And I have a social worker that worked for us in Lebanon who would cross Beirut twice a day. She was a Sunni, and she went twice through 2 Shia districts and ended up in the Catholic one, and never anything happened to her. And her father got shot the first day of the events. So, you just say, okay, you have to do something, you do it. If it goes, it goes. If it doesn't go, it doesn't go. That's life,
That's a beautiful wisdom you share. When you were in Sikkim, you met with a man called Situ Rinpoche.
Not at all.
But somehow this person links you to Isa.
When I was in Sikkim, the head of the monastery was one of the 4 regents. The monastery belongs to the Kagyu lineage, and the head of the Kagyu lineage is Karmapa. 16 Karmapa passed away in Chicago in the States. So there were 4 disciples of him that were considered as the 4 regents. And there were 2 in Rumtek. One was Jamgon Control, the 3rd, and the other one was Gyaltsab Rinpoche. And so Gyaltsab Rinpoche didn't speak a word of English. I went there to deliver the medication, and also because I obviously have some training in primary health care, I did a little bit of work around there, and I had to make a survey for a feasibility study to build a hospital for the Swiss government. And so, there's a lot of little things I did around there. So the day before I left, that means on my 9th day, the boss of the monastery, Jamgon Control, called me and, said thank you, gave me a present, and said, do you have any questions? So I had questions, obviously. I wasn't a Buddhist at the time, but to be honest, I was living just next to the monastery, just outside the monastery, because I'm not a monk, but I was given access to any place in the monastery, and some places that not a lot of foreigners have ever visited. So it's just because I was there and I was working for them, they just said, oh yeah, you want to see this, you want to see that, oh, come and see this, come and see that. And, you wouldn't imagine playing with the dogs of Karmapa if anybody asked me, or going on his rooftop looking at his birds, things like this don't happen in life. But okay, it just happened. So when I asked my questions, he said, oh, interesting questions, but I can't answer them. I don't have time. And tomorrow you have to leave, because if you don't leave, you're in jail. So he said, listen, I've got a friend. Actually, it's a brother. He has a monastery somewhere there, and I suggest you go and see him and ask him. And he speaks better English than me, and he can answer that. So, okay, I went back to Delhi, and I had to do my report for the Swiss corporation. And after that, I had 3 weeks to wait the answer of the report. The time it goes to Bern, they discuss it and send it back. So one out of the blue, I get a phone call from somebody who says, oh, listen, I was told you wanted to go to Sherabling. I need to go there too. Would you mind traveling with me? It was a woman. And she said, it's easier to travel as a couple in India because there's less problem for the females over there if you travel in a couple. And I didn't know the lady. I didn't know Sherabling. I knew, but how she knew about it, don't ask me, because I never spoke to anybody. It was a suggestion from Jamgon Rinpoche that I go and visit Siddha Rinpoche. But, what Radio Gompa, the monasteries, they have their own communication system. I don't know how it works, but how she found out that somebody suggested I go there. So yes, and very funnily, the only time ever anybody stole anything from me was on Friday 13th of April, 1984, at 4:30 in the morning in the main train station of Delhi when I boarded the train, and they nicked the bag with all my papers and all my precious possession while I was taking off my big backpack. But the next day I was in Sherabling, and there was a special ceremony, what we call a red hat ceremony, and that's where I met Isa. Yeah, it was. Yeah, okay. I didn't know anything about Sherabling or about the abbot who was Siddha Rinpoche, and that's where I met Isa on the Master of Discipline's bed next to the only telephone in the whole place, and I had to make a phone call, she had to make a phone call, and we were all waiting for the line to get free because telephone in India at that time was pretty hectic. So that's how we met, how I saw her the first time.
So may I ask, Isa, after hearing this wonderful story, how does a woman from southern Spain end up in Scherabling in the 1980s?
No, that is it was I told you I stayed until 20 in Spain, and this time it was 75. It was when Franco died, at last 75, 76, and then because I was involved in the clandestine. We were against Franco. We have a group of Trotskyists and everything, so we were involved in politics. At that moment, everything it was like explosion, yeah. And then my boyfriend and me, we decided to leave Spain. And from this time, then we went first to France because we know some people there, and then to Denmark. And in Denmark, I lived there for 1 year in a community they call Christiania,
which is very famous today because it's one of the oldest anarchistic communities. So I understand that you were one of the pioneers.
I think it was already 5 years on. They started in the 70s. It was quite new when I came there, and people were very enthusiastic, building houses, making things. So I have the chance to go there and ask for a job in the bakery, and they say, yes, why not? So I start living in Christiania, and I stay there for a year. So I make many friends, and for me it was going from hell to paradise because in Franco's time everything was repression and censura, ¿cómo se dice?
Censored.
No, cuando censuras.
Censored.
Censored and everything, and there it was everything: freedom, free love, free drugs, free marijuana, and all these things. So it was a change. Then I also break with my boyfriend at that time, and then I wanted to come to South America. I have my idea, but it didn't happen. What happened when I was in Denmark, and this is where the common thing we have is that I meet that man, that lama, high lama, who is Karmapa, because he come to Denmark to do a ceremony and to meet people. They were traveling in a little bus with many Tibetan monks. The Karmapa is the highest lama with the Dalai Lama. You can call him the second. He was the 16th Karmapa. And I was not aware at all what it was a lama. I thought it was a animal from South America, you know. And I didn't know anything about Buddhism. I consider that I have some, I like it, spiritual life, and I have some connections. But when I meet that man, everything just makes sense, you know. And I was not completely aware, but something changed in my life. And then when I wanted to go to South America alone, I saw that it was not possible. My friends, they were going to India in a truck, in a Mercedes-Benz German truck from the army that they bought it second-hand, and they put a house in the back. In this time, you could go, you may know, you are a little bit our age, there were a lot of people going to India. I didn't want to go to India, because I say, well, everybody is going to India. But something happened one night, I decided to go. And then I met them in Greece, because they were already traveling. And then we did all the road through Tehran. And then we could not go to Afghanistan because the Russians, they were there. But they went through Pakistan, Baluchistan, I believe, Quetta, Rawalpindi. And then we got, because of the connection also, one of the Englishmen who were with us and who have another track also, that it was a donation to a Tibetan community. That's it, the connection. It's incredible, isn't it?
It's that like Dharamsala?
No, it's near Dharamsala. It's the town more near is Palampur. It's only like 2 hours or 1.5 hours from Dharamsala in the same area. But this community it was Tashijong. And it was also a very high Lama who was there. And one of the track, it was a present for that community. So because of this, we finished in that Tibetan community. After I stayed there for 2-3 months and I find some connection with the Buddhism, I was painting and doing things, and also it was good for me to be there. Then this English guy who was also a Tibetan, a Tai Chi teacher, he said we are going to see somebody, some Lama, a very young Lama, who is building a monastery in the jungle, in the nearby. We can go there, maybe sleep there and come back. So we decided to go there. And this time, when we come there, it was Sherabling was just 30 monks, children, and some adult, but all working. And then when the project of Sherabling started, Situ Rinpoche was given this land near a village they call Bir.
Given this land.
Yeah. Bir, that it was also a Tibetan community. So it was given this land from the Tibetan community to him to build the monastery. And when he first start, he had only a tent, in nothing else, in the middle of the jungle, where there were tigers and monkeys and everything. So when I come, already some buildings were there, but very, very, very few. And then when we come and I meet him, I was like very, very strong for me, because Tai Situ Rinpoche is the main disciple of the Karmapa. So after 1 year that I met the Karmapa in Denmark, I met my teacher, his disciple.
So the Situ Rinpoche became your teacher?
Yeah, he was only 25 and I was 22. Okay, he was very young. His English, it was starting. My English, it was terrible. But the connection, it was so strong that this same night I decided to stay in the monastery, and I did stay for 6 years in the monastery.
Around the monastery.
How important is Situ Rinpoche for both of your lives?
What do you mean, how important? It's our teacher. So in other words, it's difficult to say. The respect is so strong that whatever he wishes us to do, we would do. But, I don't know how to explain that. It's pretty difficult. If you're a Buddhist, by definition, you need to find yourself a guru or a teacher. And once you have a guru, there is a connection. And that connection is, I don't know how to explain it. You have to trust the person. You can change gurus if you don't feel like, or there's no obligation, but once you have a connection, it is very strong. So, I don't know. I worked for, when I stayed in the monastery, I stayed about 8 months around there. I worked for him, and that means that also I was a foreigner and I spoke English, and he was interested in a lot of things about the West. So I did spend a lot of hours talking with him, usually in the afternoons. And so something developed over time. And at one point, I don't know, 4 months there or something like this, whatever, I asked to take refuge. And then I had to ask 3 times, but the 3rd time I got it. And then you follow whatever advice he will give you. Doesn't mean he will give you an advice, because, gurus tend to be mirrors, we call them. It's a mirror where you have to look at. And what he does, usually, if you ask serious questions about yourself, he will just bounce it back towards you. Because Buddhist, you have to do your own work yourself.
If we go flash forward from there, a couple of years later, both of you find yourselves living in Glasgow.
Yeah, but not a couple. No, we
10 years later.
We met in Sherabling, but then Isa went back home in July. So we were, I would say, together without being together, maybe for 3 months. after that, Isa was going back to see her parents because she used to go back once every year or every 2 years. And then I stayed there. I was alone. But after some time, we decided that we should get together again. And we decided to go back to Switzerland because being Swiss and having Swiss training, if you want, there's no problem for me to get a job in Switzerland. Besides, as an educator, you always get a job because there's always problems. So we went back to Switzerland and we started living together. And because we both have the same teacher, we ended up being involved in, Buddhist things in Switzerland, in France. And then after some time, we lived 9 years in France, just across the border, but still in France. And then we moved to Glasgow because various reasons. And then we lived 15 years in Scotland.
Yeah, but I understand that one of the main reasons that you moved to Glasgow was because your teacher was giving a 7-year course there. Is that correct?
Yes, it's one of the main reasons. I would suggest there's another main reason, but yes, we were taking it's the core practice of our lineage, and we started going to see him because we didn't go to India after that very much when we were in France. So he's coming to Scotland. That was closest to us. And we had 2 boys. At the time, we had a very good family friend with 3 girls. And they accepted to look after our boys while we were gone for 2 weeks. So we started going for the course. And then we joined the course on year 3. So the next year, year 4, we went again. And after that, on year 4, we suddenly decided, listen, if we have to come every time a year, it's a lot of logistics. And for us, it costs a lot of money in a way. So why not move? And because I'm British, then living in Scotland is not an issue. And getting a job in Scotland was not an issue neither because my qualifications were recognized. So I started becoming a social worker for the deaf. And then we started 15 years in Scotland. And then 2 boys were grown up, went through university, got their masters. And we decided to retire. And Isa, being out of Spain for 35 years, expressed the idea that maybe we could go back to Spain. But actually, our teacher, at one point, we went to visit him because from Scotland, we would travel back to India again. And our teacher one year suddenly suggested that we go and build him a center in the north of Spain because somebody gave him 100 hectares of land. And he said, I was given 100 hectares of land. Can you go and build me a center? And it didn't work out, not because of the teacher, but because of logistics in Spain. So because it didn't work out, he then said, okay, and you just go to Spain and you do whatever you want. And then we came here and we had decided that we would move from Scotland because our mind was done. And so we found this place and decided to make a retreat center up here.
Okay, now you say we came up here, but can you please describe the place where you live to the people of the podcast, to the audience?
Well, we live at 2,000 meters in the middle of the National Park of Sierra Nevada, on the south side of it, exactly at below the Mediodía, the midday peak, and facing south, so we can see the Mediterranean all the way down. And even Africa, when the light is good, we see the hills of the Atlas, the Atlas range in the whole horizon at the end. And we're at 2,000 meters, meaning that we get 30 degrees max in summer. And the lowest we had middle of the night was -9, 11 years ago. Now -6 only last year. And we have a small farm of about 4 hectares, and mainly walnuts. And since we have bought 1 or 2 places with houses, so we technically now have 4 houses that can receive people to do retreat. And so we're really a retreat center. That means we don't give any teachings here. People who want to come here, they must have their own instructions, whatever they are. They can be Catholic, Muslims, Buddhist. I mean, it's unimportant. The thing is, we try to offer a retreat place where they can have retreat, and we provide the logistics.
You say we don't provide any teachings, but how's that possible that somebody who is a great speaker as you are, but you also got years and years, both of you got years and years of teachings in Tibetan Buddhism and in Buddhism in general, so you must have a lot to teach, no?
The question doesn't exist for 2 reasons. The first, I have instructions from my teacher not to proselytize, very clearly. So that is one thing. And the second is that although I love speaking, and obviously I love argumentating, and that's always been my life, I don't feel qualified at all. Because I think, you're on your own. Everybody's on its own. You have to do the work yourself. So what worked for me might not work for somebody else. And I'd rather have somebody with much more experience than me try to influence somebody to do something. I fell in it. I got lucky, I would suppose. I mean, being a Buddhist, I would call it karma. So I must have done some very good things in previous lives to actually have my actual life now, because it was a real nice doodle, but doesn't give me the ability to tell anybody what to do. Okay, we had experience. I can tell you about my experience, but it cannot be an instruction for you or for anybody, because that was me. Everybody has to has to answer his own questions and make its own decisions, because that's what's life, is it? You make your own decisions. And I would feel really bad if I had influenced somebody to make a decision and that it came and damaged him seriously. Now, I have training, obviously. I have training because of my job. I mean, I did transactional analysis, and if there is one manipulative technique, it's transactional analysis. So yes, I know a bit how to manipulate, but I would definitely refrain and not do it, because I would feel really, really bad if I did it.
No, but when in the professional decisions that you made in life, you say they were not decisions. You say it happened to me, but you ended up in some of the poorest places on earth. Even when you go to Glasgow, I mean, poverty in Glasgow centre is, I've heard that 1/3 of all the children in Glasgow lives in poverty. So that these are decisions that bring you to places where you can make a change.
Yeah, in Glasgow, with the soup kitchen at 10 o'clock at night on George Square, the main square in Glasgow. And, that was one way, for instance, for us to give a hand and do things. It was the free distribution of food to whoever came, doesn't matter. So, yeah, I mean, you always end up doing things for others, or at least we ended up always doing things for others. But, again, it's not really a choice. It's just an opportunity, in the sense that, we can do it, we have the means, and so we do it. Why not? We could go and, do retreat in a cave, each of us up on the mountain with nobody around. That would be okay with our, I would say, training and dedication as Buddhists. But you don't have to. You can if you want, but you don't have to. We chose to do things that actually are useful and helpful for people. And we didn't ever talk about it with Isa, to be honest. But our teacher, part of his job, no, part of his duty is to help others. Whatever it can be, medicine, astrology, teachings, buildings, food, schooling. I mean, one of the main work of the C2s is the education, looking after young children and educating young children. That's one of his main, he's got a school now with 500 young children, where before there were 10. So, it's difficult to explain. It's not a, how do you say, it's not a thought decision. It is not a, it's not something we thought about. It just so happened. We're wired that way, and it works that way. Maybe that's why we're together.
Talking about children, Isa, so you have kids living in the UK, I believe, living in Scotland.
Now our children, they are 38 and 36 because we have them we meet a long time ago. So yeah, no, they have education in France for 10 years, and then we moved to Glasgow. For 10 years they were there. Another 5 years also they did the university, and they are engineers in electronic and computing, and they live their own life.
How do they regard both of their parents living and hosting a monastery high up in the Sierra Nevada?
First, we have no monastery. I mean, we make it very, very clear with Situ Rinpoche that this is just a center for meditation, for retreat. We are no monks. There is no monks here. The Lama will come once a year. We try, and then he can give us some teachings, and he can do some ceremonies and everything that we appreciate, and is very good. But we don't get a lot of people here. And the most we get maybe is 15 to 20 people if there is an event. And then we have the little houses where the people, they like to come and meditate by themselves, and this is what we provide. So it's not a monastery. Our children, they have been educated. No, we didn't force anything, any kind of ideas. We just live what we are, and we want them to live their own experience and their own life. We don't force anything, so we still have good relation with them. They come and see us. They help whenever they can. I don't think they are Buddhist, but they are good humans. That our teachers say the first thing before being Buddhist is to be a good human, and that is important. A good heart, and they do the things that they have to do, like most of us will try to do. Yeah. That is important. So for us, this is important. So that's it. And for us also, I mean, we have this job to do to educate the children, but very luckily, 12 years ago, they were already finished their studies and they were working. So we were free. And this is where we decided with Situ Rinpoche to start something in Spain. And for us, these 12 years have been plenty of inspiration, because we are in the nature, we are in a place that we love it, it's peaceful, and we meet nice people, and we do things that we really appreciate. It's a different thing, but somebody has to do it. And I think for us, it's our thing. We love animals. I have also a medicinal garden where I have the plants, and the idea is that the Tibetan teacher, doctor, he can come here. He's also an astrologer. He can come here and teach us about how to do Tibetan medicine. And this we discussed with Tom and the wife, Angela. And it's something that we really take at heart. It's something that we really want. And we want to do it because this place is very pure, very clear.
And let's say if I want to come to your center, how do I get there?
Oh, it's secret. We won't tell you.
No problem. We are, the next village here is Laroles in the Alpujarra, very near to the Almeria province. But from there is a road, and then there is a forestry track. And it's taken something like 40 minutes to come from Laroles. That is the village that is more near.
And what is the name of your center?
It's Palpung, And Palpung means in
Mount of
Tibetan
excellence.
is a mountain of excellence. Is whatever is a quantity, is a amount of excellence. And all the Palpuns they are directed by Taisitu Rinpoche, and he already have a big in India. It was in Tibet, and now there is a little bit everywhere.
Yep.
So this one we call Palpun Sierra Nevada. There is another center in the north. Their name is Sampel, and there is also we have also some land in the Catalonia.
And what is the future of your center? I mean, long term and short term.
That depends on sponsors, because there are some, I would say, possibilities to rebuild some ruins that we have on the land that we have. There are always options to buy new land or whatever, but that depends on sponsors, because I mean, we've already did our bit. Now other people should come and do theirs, if you see what I mean. So our hope is that we find preferably a couple, but it doesn't have to be a couple, people who will take up from us, because I mean, we're getting older, and it'll be a time where we won't be able to do the work here. So we hope that over time people will come, like the place, and take over. We built legally a community. So
does the land is it owned by Sito Rinpoche then, or by
no,
you?
No,
not directly. That's what I said. Well, I was going to say. In Spain, we built a legal entity called Community Buddhista Palpung. So Palpung is the generic name. It's the main monastery in Tibet, and as from that on, because under the same guidance of the same teacher, all the centers have Palpung in the name. So we have a community now in Spain, legal, recognized state, as a religious entity, that is the Buddhist community Palpung. So that community now has about just under 50 hectares within Sierra Nevada, mostly national park and natural park. So once we're gone, obviously by inheritance, the little bit we kept for Isa and I will go to the community. In other words, it belongs to the community. Now, we built the community with a constitution, and we tried as much as we could that our teacher is the boss of the community. But we are in Spain, and a foreigner cannot be the boss of a Spanish company. He can if he lives in Spain, not if he lives outside. So it's a little bit of, juggling to protect it, so that we don't have problems like some other people have of takeovers from people who are not within the same line put. So for us, the future, it's not ours. We're just the caretakers, even if it's in our name for some of it. We're just the caretakers. Anyway, the day you die, whatever money, whatever beautiful cars you have and all that, you're not taking with you. So you have to find somebody to give it to before you leave. It's better, because then you control it a bit. Otherwise, then whoever comes first gets it. So future is, we hope that it's going to flourish, and we don't want it to become big, because again, that's the idea of the retreat center. It's difficult to find in the West places where you can have a serious retreat, as in the environment of it. In the cities, it's difficult, even wherever you go. Here, it's amazing. I mean, our first neighbor is 20 kilometers from here. I mean, you don't get too much places around where you can get that. So, it's a beautiful thing. The big problem we face is actually climate change, because it's getting drier, and water is a big problem. For the moment, all our land has water, but you never know when it stops. And living up here at 2,000 meters without water, forget it.
Yeah, but what we want, I mean, for what you say about the project, I mean, we Tom, he knows about this. We have a land because when Situ Rinpoche he came here in 5 years ago, he really liked one land and told us to get it, and we got that land where there is a very nice finca, very nice land, with a lot of water. And there is where we want to do our project. So it's like a botanic garden where we can plant the things that they are already here, but also introduce other, and also have like education purpose, so the people can know and the children and pass on the tradition, because the people used to have a tradition of medicinal plants. And then also the animals, we working together with the shepherd who have 10 mules, 300 sheep, and 100 cows in freedom. So they are in the mountains, and we're working with them and his wife, that is a trainer, how do you say,
Horse trainer.
Horse trainer. We're working with them because there are people from the village who are living in the traditional way, and we want this to be together, that this can continue to be like that, and people can enjoy the nature in a very good way without harming, just giving as much as they can. And this is our project now with this finca that we got it like now from 3 years ago, and we have a house there that we already managed that is 30 square meters, but there is a quadra, like a horse, how do you call this?
Corral.
A corral.
But walled corral.
A walled corral made in the traditional way, and we want to restore this place like a traditional way, so the people, they can also stay there, and maybe make a little museum, or make also like scenes for the people to come and everything. And that is our project now.
I like it very much, all these things that you do on that remote piece of land of yours. I see two people who are very social and very fond of communication. Don't you miss humanity up there? Don't you miss meeting a lot of people?
No, we have people coming here.
There's a lot of people coming here visiting, but to be honest, no, we don't miss that much.
No, we have many friends, and also another thing we have volunteers. They are mainly young people that they come from all over
the world,
and we are happy that they stay here. Sometimes 1 month, sometimes 6 months. And they learn from us, and we also learn from them, and they come from all over the world. And there are people who have also the same connections, no Buddhists, but the people who love nature and they want to learn. And this, I think, is also very important now for young people to know that there are places like this, and they can have a different way of living, that they don't have to go in the rat race, how they call, no? Because many of the young people, they are a little bit lost, and they are upset, because they get the study, they get everything, and then what? Work and make money and buy horses, buy houses, and buy cars, and they get very, some of them, they are looking for something else, and that's, I think, it can be a little impact in their life, and it's good. And then we have people from the village here. We have a lot of people who work like, we meet also this Costco, because we have ecological market now. We are part of ecological market. We have a lot of walnut. We do also creams and oils and plants. And we go into this market and meet other people and exchange things with them. And this is also something that we only do for the last year. We didn't do before. But now we really like it, because we are also interconnecting with other people who have also the same ideas, and there are few of them in the Alpujarras. So we are not alone here. We have social life.
Yes. Okay, beautiful. I want to thank you, both of you, Isa and Humphrey, for your generosity in recording this interview. Is there a last word that you want to share with the people listening to this podcast? People who despair, people who sometimes, when you look at the climate crisis, think, where is all this gonna end? Maybe one word of hope?
I just they want.
Enjoy life. Enjoy the moment. Enjoy life.
Yeah, and everybody is welcome to come here and give us a hand. Because what the worst is just to be depressed or to say that nothing is worthy. Is anything you work and you do it, even if you are planting a tree or you are looking after horses or after the animals and you are looking after the earth. I think is this what give our more value as humans, and this is what we should do it. And everybody is welcome to come here. You are very happy.
You have been listening to another episode of the podcast to restore your faith in humanity. With us today were Qilin-Giraffes and Humphrey. Be on the lookout for our next podcast that should be online within a month. Thank you for listening, and I hope we find each other again very soon.